good evening, or good morning, good night. Depends on when you're watching it. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're here together. And I'm back after a brief 3-year hiatus. I'm back in business. The bev of choice tonight is chai tea with a dash of honey. Of course, served in my seasonally appropriate cauldron mug. So I hope you're sipping on something delicious. If you hear something jingling around, that would be Ripley, and hopefully we don't start any fires tonight. The song of the day is Cough Syrup, the Glee cast cover. I was gonna try and find like a perfect like fall vibe song, but that's honestly the only song I can think of right now. It's just stuck in my head, so give that a listen. And I'm feeling greasy. Let's get into it. So I figured if I was gonna break my hiatus with any type of video, that was going to be something fall vibe, spooky adjacent, because that's my vibe. That's me. You might not know that, but that's me. I'm here today to tell you my spooky-ish, thriller, horror, good vibe fall TBR. And to be honest, I'm cheating a little bit because it's mid-October now. And so I've kind of already started. So I'm gonna tell you about 2 books that I've already read. We'll just count it as like the TBR, like you don't know that I already read it. I could be lying to you, but I'm gonna be honest, I already read them. But I guess the point of me sharing my TBR at all is to maybe inspire you for what you should pick up this fall, so it's fair game, right? Right. Without further ado, let's see what we're cooking with. To be honest, this is a hefty stack. Am I realistically gonna read this all this fall? No. I actually looked it up, and turns out the first day of winter is December 21st. Can you believe that? Because I can. Because to me, fall ends Thanksgiving. Day after Thanksgiving, it's Christmas. It's winter. But in order for me to like get through this stack realistically, I'm gonna have to push it to that like December 21st kind of date. I have some like as it goes further down, one that could be like winter vibes, so. And don't mind me if I'm like fiddling with my bangs because they are literally hot off the press. My friend Eden cut these for me about 3 hours ago, so I'm like looking in my mirror over there and I feel like I'm wearing a wig, but that's okay. But if I'm being weird, that's why. And it might also be because I didn't drink any water today and I have a headache, but that's okay. You live and you learn, and sometimes you learn that same lesson every single day. And one could argue that you don't learn. In fact, you don't learn, but as I mentioned, I already technically started, so I'm gonna get the 2 out of the way that I already read. So the first book I actually listened to as an audiobook, and that would be Practical Magic. You've probably heard of Practical Magic, if not the book, then the movie. I mean, it's a fall classic. It's a fall witchy girl classic. And if you didn't know it's a book, that the movie is based on a book, now you know. So Practical Magic follows 2 sisters who grow up raised by their aunts who are both like a little bit kooky. The rumor in the town is that they're witches, and it's kind of how they grow up together, dealing with that, coming into themselves and dealing with those powers, and deals with love, relationships, family, magic. It's basically the perfect book. And I honestly really liked it as an audiobook. So I'd recommend that, but I can imagine it would be good to read it as a physical book too. I read that one back in September, and it was the perfect thing to kick off the start of my like fall reading, because instantly I was in it, you know? And I was just ready to keep my fall reading going. So the next book I read was Gone Girl. I read it as a physical book, but I lent it to my dad, so I don't have it here with me. Another really good book that has been adapted into a really great movie. If you don't know, Gone Girl is about Nick and Amy on their 5th wedding anniversary. You could say they're having some marital issues. You definitely could say that. And then, Amy's missing. What happened to Amy? And that's what the book is about. Gillian? Is it Gillian or is it Gillian? I'm never sure, but I think I heard someone say it's Gillian, so. Gillian Flynn. All of her books are incredible. And they're perfect for fall because they're all thrillers and they're all very atmospheric, and her writing is just incredible. She is oh my God. She is an incredible writer, and I actually read this book with my book club. Yeah, I started a book club up this summer with some people I know from school, friends, mutual friends, and it has been like the highlight of my life. Since the last time we chatted 3 years ago, I have since graduated. I now have a full-time job. I moved out. I live alone. So starting that book club was like the best decision I ever made. It's so fun. We meet once a month. It's just a bunch of girlies and we all gather together like the best smorgasbord of food. It's like peak girl dinner where it's like the charcuterie, baked goods, little treats and chips, and we just all feast. So our last book was Gone Girl, and pretty much everyone loved it. And I've now kind of sort of read all of Gillian Flynn's books, except for one, which I'll get into later. So yeah, that's all the stuff that I have actually already finished. So now we can get into the stack that I actually had and books that I haven't read yet, kind of. One of them I've started, and that is The Troop by Nick Cutter. This is actually my book club's October book. And we picked this because we've heard it's genuinely terrifying, and I think I'm just like a tad bit over halfway now, and I can say it's living up to the expectation. I think the best word for it is unsettling. It's gruesome. It's really gross. The Troop is about a Boy Scout troop. They're going on their like little scouts retreat, staying on an island for like a wilderness expedition, and this mysterious, disturbingly thin, creepy stranger appears in the night, and he seems really sick, and there's something wrong with him. All I can say, without spoiling too much, is contagion, madness, all of the above spreads. As I'm about halfway through it, I am loving it so far. I think the writing is really great, and it sprinkles in like news articles throughout. It switches perspectives between all the characters. There's 5 boys in the troop, and you get to kind of step inside their point of view every so often, and it's really delightful, which is maybe a weird word if you've read this book. It's like disturbing. It's disturbing for sure. But it's one of those books that really handles point of view switch well, because you're genuinely interested in all of the characters' perspectives. You're never like, I don't want to read this character, like I want to go back to the other people, which is usually what happens when I read books with multiple point of views. Like I don't like them typically. So the fact that I'm enjoying this is a good sign for sure. I think it reads very similarly to like a Stephen King book, honestly, minus all the stuff that I don't like about Stephen King books, like weird sexual situations and the fact that nearly every one of his male main characters cheats on his wife for some reason, despite the fact that Stephen King's wife is usually the first person who reads all of his manuscripts. Like, I don't know. I just find that weird. I find it weird. But that's a topic for another video. The Troop has all the elements I love about Stephen King's books, specifically books like It, that has children's perspectives, also like the Institute. I think that's really exciting in horror. There's two things. When you read horror through children's point of views, they tend to inflate things to be scarier than they actually are, like the boogeyman or whatever. But there's also the scenario where they tend to underestimate the danger of the situation they're in. But if you're an adult reading it, you realize like how fucked they are, which kind of like raises anxiety and tensions, and you're like, oh my god, these kids are doing something that's so bad, and you just want to be like, stop. So it's awesome. So that is the first one I will be finishing hopefully soon. It really is like a page turner. If you're like looking for something to really like chill you to the bone, dare I say chill you to the bone, I think this is the one you should pick up. But I'll let you know what I think of it when I finish it. The next book that I really want to get through is Bunny by Mona Awad. This is one of those books that basically I started this new rule in my life that I can't like buy a book. I guess it's like to stop me from buying books online. If there's like a book I want, if I happen to stumble upon it in a bookstore, I will buy it like it's fate. I just like basically don't seek things out anymore. I like let them find me. And if I find something, then I'm like, okay, this is the time I was supposed to pick it up and read it, which kind of works sometimes. Like I'm not buying books in bulk online anymore, but I mean, this entire shelf is nearly entirely full of unread books. So maybe I just shouldn't be buying books at all. Regardless, this is one that has been on my list for quite a while now, and I finally found it at a local bookstore one day, browsing around. So I was like, okay, I hear you. I'm going to buy it and I'm going to read it. I'm like, now that I'm talking about it, I kind of don't even remember what it's about. I've heard like a lot of mixed things about it being one of those books where you kind of can't tell like what's reality, what's not. Like maybe it's an unreliable narrator, I don't even know. Okay, so it's about this girl who's in college and she gets invited to be in this like exclusive club called the Bunnies. Basically, weird things start to happen. It says they take part in monstrous experiments, whatever that means. And basically the edges of reality start to blur and you don't know like what's really going on. And I love books like that. Like that sounds like my perfect cup of tea. So I really hope I enjoy it. I love unreliable narrators. I love when like you kind of have to dissect for yourself whether something is reality or not. And honestly, sometimes it's even better where you just have to like accept that you'll never know the truth. I have a lot of high hopes for this one, despite all the like negative reviews I've heard. I'm hoping I'm the one who really loves this. If nothing else, I love this cover. Like these colors, and I also love this like texture on the typography. I think it's really nice. If I don't like reading it, I'm still gonna like looking at it, so it's a win overall. Okay, the next book is also something that I like happened to stumble upon in a bookstore, and I was like, okay, I need that. Okay, I need that. And that is the first book in the Sisters Grimm series, The Fairy Tale Detectives. Hear me out. Okay, hear me out. I read this book, like I checked it out of my library in elementary school and I ate it up. I devoured it, but I never got to finish the series because it was so popular at my school that you could like never check it out because the wait was always so long. Not only did I find this at the bookstore, I found the whole series, and so they're all on my shelf. I'll show you some other time. But as you can see, it's stunning. Like it's stunning. This is a middle grade book, which I happen to love middle grade books, so I think this will be really fun. And the kind of dark fairy tale, Grimm brothers, but we got the Sisters Grimm. Hello, ladies. Basically, the series is about these two sisters and they have to move in with their grandmother, something along the lines, and they realize they're related to the brothers Grimm. It's in their like family line, and weird things start happening. They start like getting stuck in fairy tales, and it says they're detectives, so I guess they're like solving crime in fairy tales. It sounds awesome. I'm really excited to revisit the series. Honestly, if I like really enjoy the first one as much as I did when I was 10, I might just binge the whole series and then forget all these other books on my list. But I'm like really bad at reading series. I tend to get bored easily. So most likely I'll just read this one now and the rest down the line. But you never know. You never know. Speaking of series, the next book is the first book in a series, which I don't have the second book, and most likely I will not read the second book for a while because that's just me. That's just part of my charm. I'm really bad at following through with series, but I really want to read the first one, and that is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman is just the perfect author to be reading in the fall, alongside Gillian Flynn. If you like thrillers and true crime and stuff like that, Gillian Flynn. If you like mystic, spooky, maybe supernatural things, Neil Gaiman. I bought this copy because this is awesome. This is awesome. I've been really into those like old book covers that have like a beautiful woman in a dress like fleeing from a haunted house. I've been thinking about those a lot. Like they're constantly on my mind. And this is like kind of has the same vibe as something like that. So that's why I picked it up, and I didn't even initially realize it was by Neil Gaiman. And in case we're not like all on the same page here, Neil Gaiman is like the author of Coraline, fantastic book. Good Omens, Graveyard Book, is that what it is? Lots of really good books. I'm just gonna like read the back. I've been trying to summarize, but I'm just gonna read this one because I think the description is so good that it made me buy it. So I'm just gonna read it. Richard Mayhew is a young man with a good heart and an ordinary life, which is changed forever when he stops to help a girl he finds bleeding on a London sidewalk. His small act of kindness propels him into a world he never dreamed existed. There are people who fall through the cracks, and Richard has become one of them. Now he must learn to survive in the city of shadows and darkness, monsters and saints, murderers and angels, if he is ever to return to the London that he knew. Need I say more? Like I'm gripped. I'm on the edge of my seat. Like I'm about to start it right now. Yeah, if the cover alone wasn't enough to convince you, that description did it for me. So earlier you heard me mention that I had kind of sort of read all of Gillian Flynn's books. I read the 3 main novels she has, but I have not read this novella. And isn't this fun? It's so small and cute, and it's got this fun pop of color. I'm excited to read this one. My friend Emily actually just read it and said it was really good. And it's also so short. I mean, come on, like an afternoon, just an afternoon read, maybe I'll read it. I'm honestly not entirely sure what it's about, but I know it's Gillian Flynn, and I know I love her writing. To my understanding, it has something to do with psychics. When the psychic visits the eerie Victorian home. That's a line I just read by glimpsing at it. I don't need to read the rest. Psychics, Victorian home, maybe 60 pages. I'm in. I don't need to know what it's about. Sometimes I like to go in not really knowing. Even like when I picked this up in the bookstore, God knows when that was, like 2018 probably. I'm sure I read the description and it was enough for me to buy it, but I don't really want to read it now. And like, I don't know. It's like when you watch a trailer for a movie and it just spoils it for you. Sometimes knowing the description does that too. So I don't really want to read it. But I guess that kind of defeats the purpose of like filming a video being like, here's what I'm reading and maybe you should read it too. But on the back it says, you like ghost stories? So now we know ghost stories, Victorian home, old Victorian home, and psychic. You don't need to know anything else. The next pick I technically have 2 different books, but I'm just gonna talk about them at the same time because it kind of serves the same purpose. It's been a goal of mine to read more like anthologies, short stories, because I'm someone who I need the satisfaction of reading a book cover to cover, but sometimes that's just not how books are meant to be read. I think that was one of my reading goals for the year, and I still have not read probably a single short story. So hopefully I'll change that this fall with either classic tales of horror. Get a look at this. Get a look at this. Look at this too. I mean, you can't tell me that's not awesome. If that's not enough to like entice you to read something, I don't know what it is. This is just a bunch of classic tales of horror. We got a lot of Edgar Allan Poe. We got some Bram Stoker. H.P. Lovecraft. I'm obviously not gonna sit there and read this whole thing. I'm probably never going to do that. I would consider it a success if I finished just one of these short stories. You know, before bed one night, like a little bedtime story. Get a little spooked before bed. And if I don't read this one, then I will read this one, which is some more Grimm's fairy tales, which either reading these Sisters Grimm's books will make me like in the mood to read a bunch of like fairy tales like this. And these are like the original ones, like the like fucked up telling of like Cinderella where she gets her feet chopped off or whatever it is. It's illustrated. Yeah. Oh my god. This is like everything I want to be. My good friend Eden, who cut my bangs, gifted me with this, and it's another one where it just has a bunch of short stories that you could pick up and read at any time, so just one of them would be nice. A bedtime story. The next book I have, I'm kind of predicting more of like a December, fall into winter read, because I can't really decide if it has more fall vibes or winter vibes, so I think it's a good like early December book for me. That would be Rebecca by Daphne. Oh Lord, is this French? I don't know. Daphne du Maurier, maybe? I'm so sorry, Daphne. I'm so sorry. And I actually don't know anything about this except that Tolerate It by Taylor Swift was allegedly inspired by Rebecca. To me, that means it's about an unhappy marriage. And I believe either like a gothic or Victorian novel. So maybe it has like the elements of a gothic story with like a not haunted, but like a gothic house, you know? That's like a staple in gothic literature. That would be nice. I love gothic literature. I would love to read this one before the end of the year because my boyfriend actually gave this to me for my birthday back in January. And at the time, I told him that I was gonna wait to read it until the fall or the following winter because it just seems like the appropriate time of year to read it. And I guess my birthday is in January, but for me, fall goes until Thanksgiving, and then it's winter and Christmas. And then I'm like, start of the new year, I'm like, okay, when's spring? I need spring or things are getting ugly, you know? Things are getting ugly. So I tend to like try and read, I guess, more like lighthearted, fun things to like peel me out of the seasonal depression. Like I don't really want to be reading like super depressing, dark novels when I'm already feeling so bad. But December, fair game, because I have the like Christmas magic to bring me back to life. Hopefully this is a solid read this December. And then the last book I have on this list, which is like completely irrelevant to like fall vibes, well, maybe not, is A Court of Mist and Fury. As you heard me mention earlier, I'm really bad at following through on series. This being one, proud of myself for having started it. Yep, I'm a cool 20 pages in. I started this like last month at some point. I really do want to read it, and I know I would enjoy it. And I said maybe it wasn't like relevant to a fall reading list, but I guess like fairy world, fairy realm is kind of fall vibes to me. Maybe it's kind of spring vibes actually. This is one that I'm gonna just kind of like keep going in the background. I've been like reading my book club books very diligently, and then that doesn't really leave a lot of room to read other physical books throughout the month. but I'm already halfway through it, so there's a good chance I'll finish it soon and that I can like maybe pick this back up, but then I have all those other books I want to read, so maybe not. Maybe this is like a Christmas break book when I'm like at home with my family. Is this a book to read around your family? I don't know. But like, you know what I mean? Like when you're just at home and you have literally nothing to do but sit and read. That kind of seems like the vibe. So yeah, those are all the books I want to read this fall. Hopefully I'll get through some of them. Half? All of them. Maybe me like saying that I'll read them will like guilt me into reading them. But if I'm being honest, I'm like very heavily a mood reader, and the more I like pick out books that I'm like, I'm gonna read these next, the more I'm like, I don't want to. Actually, I don't want to. So you might hear back from me after fall is well and done, and I haven't read any of these. I'll definitely read The Troop because that's my book club book, and I'll definitely read The Grownups because it's so short. But the rest, hopefully. If any of these sound good to you, let me know which ones you're gonna read, or any other books you're planning to read this fall. I would love to know. Convince me not to read these. Convince me to read the one that you want me to read. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I'm just a girl. And hopefully it won't be another 3 years until you hear from me again. Like I said, I'm graduated and I don't have schoolwork anymore. After my 9 to 5, my 5 to 9 is fair game. I hope you have a wonderful fall. I hope you read lots of good books, and I'll talk to you soon.